Thank you very much. Thank you for invitation and for bringing this critical topic to Warsaw and giving me floor for this keynote speech as opening of the today's panels and discussion. First, let's think about what's the current state of play in Europe. I would like to put a thesis in front of you that Europe is no longer an economic tiger, it's more of a paper tiger today. And by paper I mean also the amount of regulation in the area of climate change, energy, security, and so on. Europe is also now in a trap which I would describe as impossible trinity. I've published a document a couple of months ago in Politico where I have indicated at this impossible trinity as a macro trap in Europe. And let me mention about this very briefly right now. I have drawn on a concept by Mandel and Fleming from the 60s in terms of this definition, impossible trinity. And the concept was about macroeconomy, that it is impossible to fulfill at the same time three elements of macroeconomic policy: fixed income, fixed exchange rates, sovereign monetary policy, and free capital movements. You can have 2 out of 3, but you cannot have 3 out of 3 simultaneously. Now, what is the trap which we are in Europe right now? It's also impossible trinity, because we want to have innovative policy and welfare state maintained. We want to have the Green Deal and very costly climate-related policies. That's number 2. And number 3, given the security challenges, we want to have our defense capabilities increased. Now, we can quantify all 3 aspects very quickly, and you will see that it is impossible to have all the 3 simultaneously, all the 3 together at the same time. In terms of climate-related expenditures, according to McKinsey report, one should, or Europe should, spend more than it is spending today, which is approximately 800 billion euro every year. It should spend up to 1.5 trillion euro every year over the next several years to achieve climate neutrality. So we have to increase our expenditures by 500, 600, 700 billion per year if we are serious about climate neutrality goal. The defense is also quantifiable. We together, collectively, the EU member states, which are at the same time NATO member states, spend some 400 billion euro, $450 billion on defense. To be on the same level with the expenditure as the United States, we should double the amount. We should spend $500 billion per year more on defense and security. So this is quite a challenge, as you see. And we also are very proud in what we have built in Europe around the welfare state. What's the cost of the welfare state? What's the investment of the welfare state? Because it's an investment in people. It's approximately 4 to 4.5 trillion euro per year. It's hardly imaginable that you will find any politician in Europe who will be ready to take this challenge and risk to reduce the welfare state achievements. So it's reasonable to assume that this level of expenditures on welfare state will be maintained. So you can either choose to reduce our appetite to increase expenditures on climate change related issues, or we can maintain on a very bad and poor level in terms of our defense capabilities. Tertium non datur, as the Romans said. We have to completely refocus our strategy. And in the recent strategy, which was mentioned before my speech here, presented by Mario Draghi, which is called, I think, the future of European competitiveness. Mario Draghi used the phrase European Green Deal only once. I guarantee you, if this was paper presented 2 or 3 years ago, it would be used, the phrase would be used a couple of dozens of times in this document, which is now indicating how the strategy and why the strategy is changing now in Europe. Europe needs to refocus in terms of its major strategy around climate change and energy, because we are losing our ground in terms of competitiveness. Basically, the major point which Mario Draghi made was based on an assumption that we have to issue new debt in Europe on the level of 800 billion euro per year. It's hardly imaginable that richer states of the European Union will agree to issue a common debt, and such an amount of common debt on an annual basis. So I don't want to undermine the credibility of the report, because that's a very valid document and I recommend to read it to all of you. But it's difficult for me as a politician to believe that the politicians and the public opinion of Western Europe in particular will agree to issue new debt in this amount. And this is also not due to lack of ambition or potential. Europe tries to shape global economic trends, but it often does so from a position of moral superiority rather than technological dominance. And moral superiority is not good enough, it's not sufficient to shape the global landscape in the context of energy security and climate change policies. While Europe is adept in identifying its developmental barriers, it struggles to overcome them. Energy is just one piece of a larger puzzle, and understanding Europe's place in a rapidly changing global landscape requires a broader perspective. My thesis is rather simple. Green policy should drive competitiveness. Green policy should drive competitiveness and technological progress while balancing environmental goals with energy security and economic security, which is social security, which means maintaining this welfare state, which I would have mentioned before. European priorities must be realistic, and they also have to account for geopolitical risks. What's the point to be green if we are all dead? What's the point to be green if we are all under the supremacy of the Russian Federation? I want Poland to be independent. I want Poland to be free, first of all, and then we can choose the best policy. So let me now propose 4 critical challenges ahead of us. First is green technology development. So competing with global players in green technologies demand innovation rather than cost competitiveness given Europe's higher labor cost and limited access to cheap raw materials and to rare raw materials. Second, investment in research and development and basic science. Third, security in critical raw materials, securing critical raw materials, and in particular access to rare earth metals, which is critically important in the energy transformation as such. And four, creating markets for European innovations. Right now, we are facing a following situation. We are creating policies. I said paper tiger. We are creating papers, we are creating documents, directives, regulations, and they are not end-to-end appropriately analyzed end-to-end strategies, because there are other players, China in particular, which enter into those processes which we shape and present to the rest of the world, and who capitalize, monetize their strategy on the back of our strategy. That's the case today. We have to change it as the European Union. So where is Europe's strategy today? While individual nations try to tackle these challenges, they cannot compete with economic giants alone. This is where the European Union should help. But who should coordinate these collective actions? The European Commission? Let's examine a relevant example, tying together industry, ecology, and agriculture, a key aspect of green conservatism. Free trade could be a promise or a pitfall. Recently, I've seen that the biggest number of sponsors in the European Football Cup were Chinese companies. So right on the German soil, the Chinese companies, BYD, which is one of the biggest global electric vehicles producers, Vivo, Hisense, AliExpress, Alipay, they were completely dominating the European Championships in terms of the advertisements. And this is one hint what the Chinese companies are going to do. They took our strategy, the European strategy, in solar panels, in solar energy, and they won completely this strategy for themselves. Right now, 97% of waffles are produced in China, and only 1% is produced, or 2% is produced in Europe. And also, all the other regulations create an environment through which China is dominating, and China is creating the best environment to help to win the future race. So, coming to an end, what could be the energy security strategy, in particular for Central and Eastern Europe, and for the European Union as such? My thesis is that we need a new Mesmer plan. Mesmer plan was the French plan presented right after the collapse of the oil markets in 1973. And the Mesmer plan was about building very quickly a sufficient number of nuclear power plants in France. And this was very successful. Approximately 55 nuclear reactors were built over a very short period of time, 15 years. We now need such a plan for the entire Europe. Europe needs a new Mesmer plan. The industry needs low carbon, stable energy sources, which only nuclear power plants can provide them at scale. And renewables should be also supplemented and corresponding with those new nuclear energy power plants. So without these measures, Europe cannot reclaim its position as a global economic leader. Without those measures, without appropriately addressing those challenges, which I have only loosely indicated, Europe will pale into insignificance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.